the newspaper review this morning, where we'll be taking the headlines that made it to the front pages of select national newspapers this morning. We'll start as usual with the Daily Trust, and the major story there on the front page of the Daily Trust reads, bandits kill 2 policemen, adopt 40 in Zamfara. Family of 21 among captives. You'll find the details of that on page 4. And to other story directly below the name marks, rising production costs, bakers begin nationwide strike, February 27. I'm not sure what this strike would amount to, if you ask me. It's just adding fuel to the fire. Well, the point is, the average household would have to bear this brunt, as it is right now. The cost of an average loaf of bread for a household is already too expensive.
But can you see the crisis on the horizon? Because you get the sense that this disagreeable approach is going to fester for quite some time, especially when the organized labor is talking, when the NLC president was talking about a $1 million minimum wage, which we know, even in the best of times, it's not attainable.
Completely out of the radar.
So,
for me, if you ask, it sort of ridicules the conversation.
Yeah.
We clearly it does suggest that there is no any form of evaluation going on with regards to what the numbers are.
It's not evidence-based.
No, it's not completely. It's not evidence-based. We are not looking at what is possible. I think it's just wishful thinking by the unions, and you cannot get anything out of this government talking to them.
It's almost like that.
I mean, sometimes, even when they fiddled with the idea of 200,000, that's about a year ago. We felt it was ridiculous, given our reality.
What about the private sector? Do they sit and ask themselves, if we get this as the new minimum wage, what happens to the private sector? What about the businesses and their turnover? Can they afford to pay it? If they do end up paying it, will they survive? Will the business survive? Or will they be counterproductive so much so that we see a lot more businesses go down and under because of this new minimum wage? So there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into some of the ideas that have been espoused, and unfortunately, I think some of them are just not making sense.
They just don't make sense. As much as we think we will fare better with an extra pay, I mean, you and I can do with an extra cash here and there, but basically, is this visible? Clearly, no. Moving on to other stories. Buhari didn't approve $6.2 million for election observers. His signature forged, and this was a testimony.
So there should be a forgery charge somewhere regarding the people who passed this, document along. And I was reading the content of, this particular story, and a part of it was saying that the document that was forwarded to the CBN official who, is given testimony was a photocopied one. It's just really worrying how you would be working on a photocopied document that is that sensitive. So many things are just not adding up.
I think at some point we will need to hear from the president himself, because if this money was actually paid out, the former president, I beg your pardon, if this amount was actually paid out to election observers, then who ordered this payment? I mean, for what it is worth, the CBN governor, as it was then, could not have been interested in making out payments this size without necessarily getting any kind of approval. So we need to really dig deep and unravel what had gone down with this $6.2 million. Another gas explosion rocks Lagos community. We understand that several persons have been found dead. Every time you get these stories, you are worried about when the next one would be. We really don't do anything to prevent it. We just sit and wait for when the next explosion comes around. And then, of course, we have the bottom strip. IMF confirms return of petroleum subsidy. I mean, painful as this conversation would be, clearly with all of the devaluations that we have seen in the horizon, it will be impossible to maintain the current fuel price.
Yeah.
And we're beginning to see some triggers. There's this on and off sales that we see at some point. They sort of shut down their stations, and when they return, you see an addition of 5, 10, 15, 20 naira on the pump price. But at some point, except something happened very drastic, which includes ramping up local productions, we may have to pay more for pump price of fuel in Nigeria. And then you have this beautiful photo on the cover page of the silver medal winning Super Eagles. You have the president flanked by Trust Ekong and Jose Pizarro, and of course Captain Ahmed Musa, and of course Iwobi, who has suffered some cyberbullying in the last couple of days, taking one for the team, and I mean, wanting to blame him completely for the team's lackluster performance.
Okay, listen, they did their best. They made us proud. And the least we can do as a people is just to appreciate them.
True. And if you think of the fact that another AFCON is just around the corner, how you treat them now would be important going forward.
I think it was a commendable move by the federal government to award them the national honors.
That's right.
But also, maybe they should widen the scope to reflect other Nigerians who are, also giving service to the nation. There was one particular soldier who posted something online, and he was saying, listen, I took the ultimate risk fighting Boko Haram insurgents to get a bullet in my leg that is still there, and how come people like me don't get the recognition? I mean, not to take away from what the Super Eagles did.
That's right.
But I think when it comes to national honors, we should definitely widen the scope so that a lot more people can be captured. I
mean, when you talk about that soldier, I also feel a sense of responsibility. I think the media is not doing enough to stress or emphasize some of these contributions. And so sometimes you want to think that those that have been celebrated by the media are the ones who are quick to get some of this recognition.
Exactly. All right, let's turn our attention now to the front page of the Nation newspaper for today. Let's take a look at it. Access Holdings await CBN's nod for Agbede as CEO. It's a company that is going through the motions right now following that heartbreaking story that greeted the country just 2 days ago following the death of the CEO, Herbert Wigwe. He has been succeeded, and the CBN is just going to dot the I's and cross the T's on this new appointment. I don't know what you know about the new acting CEO, but it looks like we're hearing good things about her capacity to take over the helm.
She's by no means very qualified, if you ask me. The industry was initially looking at Roosevelt Ogbonna, who was deputy managing director when Wigwe was managing director, who has also been in the shadows for quite a while. But this was a depth move. If you look at it clearly, what they were doing was that because the holding structure is more administrative, they allowed Roosevelt, who is a niche professional in the banking and who controls over 80% of the business, to sit right where he is, having understood what the visions are, the expansion drive and all, to control that sensitive aspect of the business where you get another competent professional. So it's a win-win, if you ask me, for the company. And some persons are also wondering, it does look very swift.
That's how businesses move.
That's how businesses move. We have to wake up to that reality.
You can't, be seen to be indecisive or, allowing vacuums.
And you can imagine what happened. Since that announcement on Saturday, by Monday morning, the share price took a plunge. That plunge was clearly a sign of uncertainty. People were not sure what the futures look like. But with this, they would have put some nerves to rest
and stabilize the
and stabilize. Why they also lead the conversation and planning on how to give Wigwe a befitting.
What they say about investment? It likes security.
That's right.
And without that sense of security that leadership provides, you definitely get to suffer the consequences. Payment of wage award for federal workers resumes, according to Minister of State for Labor, and they meet, even though we understand that the meeting was deadlocked. In other news, 5 directors for CBN board. Air Peace begins Lagos-New York flights.
That's
maybe
interesting.
if you're planning your next Valentine's Day with Madam, she needs to know that the New York direct flight is available.
If you want to keep your sanity intact, there are informations you should run from. You know, I just stumbled on an information about what it cost to go to Ivory Coast, which is barely an hour, 30-minute flight from here. From a Nigerian carrier, it was over 2 million, and I was wondering what it would be if you're doing cross-Atlantic, or you're going over the Indian Ocean. That would mean saving up or selling out your entire savings to embark on that trip. I'm not sure how things will pan out, but until something happens about the cost of Jet A1, we may just be dealing with something completely
flying is not cheap, but is usually affordable. At this moment, I don't think it's affordable.
The both of them are out of the window, clearly.
Yeah. All right, the big story. MFL's $6.2 million trial. Buhari's signature forged, says ex-secretary to the government of the Federation. More on that story available on the pages of the Nation newspaper for today. Federal government knocks PDP governors for failing as leaders. I don't
get it.
It's a typical response from one of the presidential aides, I believe. Tinubu showers Eagles with land, flats national honors. You know, you can get the national honors is simpler than getting the land, because what have we learned about the 1994 Super Eagles? Some of them, it was during the Buhari administration that they were able to redeem the lands because they've been impoverished for years. They don't even have a home, and then finally the federal government decided to, redeem that pledge.
That's right.
But what we've seen over the years is these promises, they make it to the headlines, but the paperwork before it gets done takes a decade or more before it happens. So it's not that it's easier said than done.
Yes, but a bit of credit to what we saw yesterday, and I hope it's not us giving commendations well ahead of action. We saw that, or rather we witnessed that the FCT minister immediately gave out the forms, to begin the documentation process to have those lands allocated.
Oh, that's good.
We also hope that we do not have a repeat of what we did with the previous Eagles, where we allocated land in places that we are not ready for development.
Right.
You know, we had no infrastructures, nothing. And basically, it was more like, we would give you, but...
I would also put, say, an addendum on that gift, that you have to develop it and it has to be in your possession.
That's right.
There's no selling that land.
Yeah, that's
There's
right.
no
but the only way you can get them to also do that is to allocate lands that already have infrastructures embedded. You know, that naturally would encourage them, because, it will cost you a fortune to pick up those, I hope we'll learn from it. Moving on to the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The Vanguard is looking at hardship, or what we call cost of living crisis in other platforms. FG tackles PDP governors' orders. Says there is a lot of hunger and anger in the land. That's from the PDP governors. PDP governors playing to the gallery. FG. PDP stating the obvious. APC has ruined our economy. This is coming from the Labour Party. Suffering, pushing Nigerians to the brinks. PDP BOT tells Tinubu. Confirms Wabara as BOT chair. Appoints McCarthy as secretary. I think it is not time for blame game, if you ask me. That's a reality that stares everyone in the face.
That's what they're quite used to.
They are also guilty of what they accuse the PDP of. They are also playing to the gallery. It is, in my view, undermining what Nigerians think about, or the reality that Nigerians are going through. And beyond just the playing game, this government should be telling us how we can't get out of this quagmire. And the Vanguard here is also displaying the list of those it considers as worthy Nigerians it hopes to reward in the Vanguard Personality of the Year. And we see some major headliners there, like the chief executive and the founder of Airpeace, among several other dignitaries that have been lined up for this award.
Okay. Time now to take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper for today. And these are some of the stories you can find on the pages of the Punch. Wigwe crash report ready by March. Kingsman declare 8-day mourning. And it's quite a really sad one. Especially because of the way it happened. I mean, the entire family just triggered the trauma I felt when basketball legend Kobe Bryant and his daughter alongside other family members also crashed in Los Angeles also because of bad weather and things like that. So,
you know, the Wigwe's death for me made the Super Eagles losing a more devastating blow. I was desperately in search of some good news as a journalist who covered the capital market and the financial and the economy for well over 10 years. I worked very closely with him for 6 of those years when I was deployed to Lagos, whether as the chairman of CACOVID or the chairman of bank CEOs, or even as a bank MD, especially during the acquisition of Diamond Bank and all of that, or at the bankers committee meeting, you know, where some of those funds were deployed to support national assets. You know, he was always there talking to us. You know, I was just getting a flashback of some of the, especially the direct questions I put to him, and how he would walk up to me after the event to say, you probably were not satisfied with my response, but these are extra details if they would serve any.
You get a sense that, you know,
purpose.
he's not only an ambitious businessman, but he's also very passionate about Nigeria and some of the developmental programs that, you know, he was working on before his death. So,
that's right. I mean, the university, you can imagine what it takes and what his thinkings were to have come up with those kind of programs. So it was a death of a very magnificent, a very big proportion, if you like, to the average Nigerian.
Okay, let's take one last look at the front page of the Punch newspaper before we wrap things up on the show today. We've talked about the NLC meeting deadlocked as bakers threatened to shut down. So bread is probably not going to be available if this goes ahead in the coming weeks.
Unfortunately, you can't buy and store for too long.
No.
Life is
bread has a very short lifespan.
We probably have to learn how to bake now.
Exactly. Or maybe learn to live without bread for a while. Customers tired of estimated billing, federal government tells discos. And that about does it. I think the federal government is catching up on the views and the perspective of Nigerians, especially as it talks about performance and what the discos are unable to do. Guess who we are likely going to declare wanted now for not showing up for today's newspaper analysis? Mr. Ben Sherman. Fortunately for him, he's not going to hear this one, but hopefully we'll get him back next week. Well, this is where we anchor today's edition of Daybreak on Trust TV. Thank you most kindly for joining us as always. We do appreciate your time and company. Feel free to join us again tomorrow. It begins live at 8 a.m. Until then, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Good morning.
All right, if you've missed out on any segment of our shows, you can catch up with our social media handles on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until we see you again tomorrow, I'm Sunday Michael Ogu, and do have a great day ahead.